For a few matches this season, Lazio have had more supporters outside of the stadium than they have inside the stadium. No, this isn't because the stadium was sold out, the 70,000-seater that is the Stadio Olimpico. This is because the supporters are clashing with the ownership. There's an internal war going on, namely with Claudio Lotito once again. Yes, again, because there have been stadium boycotts before in Lotito's 22 years of owning Lazio. Now, you've heard of boycotts from supporters in the past, 15 minutes before they go in. But this has taken a completely different turn this season, with attendance figures at the Stadio Olimpico reading 5,000 or less on a few occasions. So it must be really bad, right? Well, the club is seemingly going backwards in the opinion of the supporters. The supporters blame Lotito, and Lotito blames Maurizio Sarri, which we know now thanks to a leaked phone call. It's not good. Thankfully for them, they have a good Serie A manager in Maurizio Sarri, so for now, they look like they are going to avoid one of their lowest finishes since the 2000s. But everyone's mad at each other, with the owner pointing back to the difference in how he found the club when he purchased it. And he's not exactly wrong when he says he saved the club, because he did. Prior to his arrival, the previous owner, Sergio Cragnotti, was involved in a financial scandal that involved one of his companies, the food conglomerate Sirio, which, when I was looking into this, I really recognized their label. I checked my pantry, and sure enough, there it is. Anyway, remember how Parma suffered from Parmalat's financial issues? Lazio suffered from the wrongdoings of Sirio by Cragnotti. And for 3 consecutive years, the club's finances were in the red, over 300 million euros in losses in just 3 years. Not just that, but their debt was also at over 350 million euros, with some of that owed to Italy's tax authorities as well. The club was forced to sell some of their top assets, such as a certain Alessandro Nesta, and later in 2004, Lotito's takeover was complete. Granted, it was truly at the stroke of midnight, just beating the deadline before they would have been bankrupt, relegated, and forced to return as a Phoenix club. Now, where did he get his money? He was a local entrepreneur in Rome who built up his wealth through various kinds of businesses, private security, cleaning services, etc. And after his initial investment of 18.2 million euros, he then spearheaded negotiations with the Italian tax authorities regarding the 140 million euros the club owed them. Instead of paying it immediately, he negotiated to pay it across 23 years, so about 6 million per year if paid in even payments. But it wasn't just that side of things. Even days before their first match of the 2004-05 season, Lazio had just 10 players contracted to the club, given the fire sale they had to execute. In the final day of the transfer market, Lotito purchased 9 players. 9 in one day, and they were able to compete. From there, it took some time to get Lazio into consistent top 10 finishes, but along the way, they won the Coppa Italia in 2009, they won it again in 2013 in a final against their local rivals, AS Roma. However, throughout his time with the club, supporters have felt that he has simply seen Lazio as an investment, not having to put any of his own wealth into it, without having a passion for Lazio where he's, willing to spend his own money in order to create a consistent winning project. To that, again, Lotito points to the past and to the 3 Supercoppas and 3 Coppa Italia that they have won under him. But one of the things that Lazio supporters point to is how he got the club in the first place. Lotito had originally pulled out from purchasing Lazio on July 18th, 2004, the day before the deadline. But Lotito later revealed that on the night of the 18th, he received a phone call from then Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi asking him to purchase Lazio, as it would be a massive loss for Rome and Italy, Serie A, to have them go bankrupt. So Lotito got back in the race to purchase Lazio. This, plus the fact that he isn't spending freely and Lazio is ultimately a selling club, this leads supporters to believe that he has no real passion for Lazio, that it's treated more like an investment, with the allegation being that the debts are being paid down through the club's own profits, and player purchases only come after big player sales, not from Lotito reaching into his own pockets to bring up his own capital. In fact, some call him the cheap one. Others, they point to the fact that regardless of how it was done, Lotito still helped save the club. The big picture is that they are consistently in Serie A, they aren't bankrupt, and now and then they sniff out a trophy. Now, for the summer of 2025, you may remember that Lazio had a transfer embargo due to failing financial liquidity tests. The only signings or transfer fees paid were to make loan transfers permanent ones, so not really new signings. But other than that, they weren't allowed to sign anyone. Perhaps you'll also remember the story of how Maurizio Sarri was left unaware of the transfer ban until after he'd signed a 2-year contract with the club. That led to his clothes saying that he would have left any other club but Lazio had he learned of the transfer ban, and admitted that they would suffer this season. This transfer ban was seen as more proof to Lotito's critics in the fan base that he was not operating the club with success at heart, or at the absolute best, that he was doing a sloppy job of running the club. So without the ability to bring in any players, Sarri had to work with what he had, a team that finished in 7th under Marco Baroni, and from the summer until the start of the January transfer window, Sarri was able to guide Lazio to 8th. So they were trending at about the same sort of pace as the previous season. However, after not being able to spend anything in the summer, Lotito did purchase 3 players and loaned in Daniele Maldini as well in the winter. They loaned out second choice keeper Christos Mandas, which Sarri said he outright opposed in the press. And what happened? Provedel got a season-ending injury. Yikes. However, Lazio also opted to sell 2 of their most important players, one of their top scorers from last season, Tati Castellanos, as well as Matteo Guendouzi, bringing in almost 60 million euros for the pair of them. They almost lost Alessio Romagnoli, a team leader, to Al Sadd in Qatar, but eventually blocked that transfer. Their expenditure for the winter, 36.5 million euros, total gain from sales, 63.3 million euros, according to Transfermarkt. But they have felt like this habit has gone on for some time. As players like Milinkovic-Savic, Ciro Immobile, Luis Alberto, and others have left, the replacements have been less than satisfactory, with this poor squad building and planning coming to a head this season as their average position is slipping further and further down the table year upon year. So you can see why the supporters have felt shortchanged. When they are already doing poorly by their own expectations, they sell important players and replace them with inexperienced ones who, in Taylor's case, are improving greatly. He's doing well recently, but you're just making Sarri's already difficult job even more difficult, and results suffered. From the beginning of January to March 4th, they played 12 matches, won 3, lost 4, and drew 5 across all competitions. There have been protests in the streets where Lotito has been called a dream thief and asked to sell the club. There have been protests via graffiti written in various places in the city as well. One such message was written on a wall near Lazio's training ground, which read, quote, "A message for Donald Trump. Lotito has a lot of oil and he's a dictator," end quote. This, of course, in relation to America's recent strikes in Iran, inviting Trump to, well, aid in a regime change, to put it nicely. But the most notable of their protests have been the boycotting of home matches. And remember, their away support had also been banned for a few matches, so the squad barely got to play in front of their own supporters for quite some time. In January, Lazio's Ultras started a campaign to get supporters to boycott their match against Genoa. The club spoke out against this, saying, quote, "This is a serious and unacceptable act which goes beyond any form of legitimate dissent and amounts to a genuine attempt to exert organized pressure and influence on the club, the team, and the entire Lazio community." That didn't stop most supporters from boycotting, however, as just 5,000 showed up to the Stadio Olimpico. Eerie COVID-era vibes with just 5,000 people in a 70,000-seater stadium. The next home match, 3,400. After that, 2,000. Unbelievable. In the Coppa Italia match against Atalanta, there were more fans outside the stadium than inside, as I said earlier. A bizarre sight with supporters lighting off fireworks outside the stadium when Lazio scored, a way of showing the players a message that they're still with them, even though they're not inside the stadium with them. Now, you may have seen that they showed up for the AC Milan match, put on a great choreo, and it was quite the scene. But this, as the supporters said, was a, quote, "last act of love for this season," end quote. In response to these boycotts, even Sarri is frustrated now, saying, quote, "It's a long story, and someone within the club will know what the biggest issues are and how to intervene. But come on, something needs doing. We can't go on like this. It's depressing. In June, I stayed at Lazio for the fans, and now even I don't know why I stayed. Something needs doing. I think the club has to take some initiative to bring them back because This is too much of a difficult situation for us. As things stand, more boycotts are expected, as the end goal is to force Lotito out of the club. But as club expert Simon Baston told the BBC recently, that will prove to be very difficult, even with these boycotts. As he said, quote, "Changing the manager, changing a player, changing a media consultant in a club is easy because you can force that in some way or form. Presidency and sale of the club is a little bit more complex. Lotito is as flexible as an iron bar. You will have to come to terms in some way or form. There has to be some type of peace between the two because otherwise kids are not going to follow Lazio." End quote. But according to a leaked phone call that Lotito was on with a supporter, the owner blames Sarri for not utilizing the players properly and also says that the boycotts won't do a thing to hurt him, saying, quote, "What's the problem? I didn't ask you for money. If I do a capital increase, the matter is over. What are you talking about?" To that, the supporter then asked him why he didn't do a capital increase for the transfer market, to which Lotito said that the caller didn't understand him and asked him what he did for a living and gave a half answer. With every criticism, he'd again point to how he saved the club in the past. Answers are in the past, nothing in the present. So it seems this war between club and supporters will roll on. The question is, who will break first? Lotito is unbending, as Baston said, but he'll have to bend at some point, right? If these boycotts go on, surely he'll bend? Anyways, guys, that's it here. We'll keep an eye on how this plays out. Thanks, as always, for joining me, and I'll see you soon for more. Later.